You are listening to Wicked Psychotherapists, a podcast where two psychotherapists show you that taking care of and learning about mental health doesn't have to be wicked hot.
Hey everyone, this is Tanya.
Hi, this is Erin, and welcome to Wicked Psychotherapist.
We are traveling into Gen X territory. We are going with another Winona movie as promised. If you've been following us, you know that we're obsessed with Winona Ryder at the moment. We have varying obsessions. We're going to talk about the movie Reality Bites. And this is a 90s classic, a 1994, I believe. This was kind of like really a great movie for people who were, graduating college in their early 20s. Around this time, it kind of showed the maybe the angst or the need for trying to find like who are we in this, day and age after the baby boomers, having them as parents, and they were, went through this whole, hippie culture and then turning into like the 80s yuppies kind of thing and going corporate. And so they're kind of inheriting this, work ethic, but also wanting to be authentic to themselves. It's such an interesting movie because it's so great. I mean, all the actors in there too are just amazing. There's Ethan Hawke and Janine Garofalo.
Yeah, we had to do some sleuthing for
we
her
just
and
realized
Andy
Renee
Dick.
Zellweger
Like,
is in it at the very beginning. If
Yeah.
you didn't know that little piece of trivia, we were like I was astounded. I was like, what? Aaron had told me. We still can't really figure out where Andy Dick was. Like, it's still, if anybody knows, please let us know. It's just a sleazy boss. So, oh my gosh, did he play when she was interviewing and
Oh,
for
yeah.
jobs after she got let
Ew,
go from the
gross.
production
Ew.
job?
I don't know.
And he
Maybe.
was the one that was like, it was like a rated X kind of movie place.
Well,
And he was like,
I guess so. Yeah.
like
that would
licking his
that'd
teeth.
probably
Was
work.
that him?
Because
That
John
looked to
Mahoney
me.
was her other
So,
boss.
I don't know.
so
Maybe that was
would-
like, that's what they meant by sleazy boss.
Well, now he's
That
two
just
for,
hit me. Yeah.
of the 3 times we've talked about John Mahoney
Yeah.
the
John
podcast.
Mahoney, and he played up
2 times he hasn't been the nicest.
We don't like
So,
that.
come on. He is the best as Marty in Frasier.
Yeah. Yeah. But he ends up being victorious in Frasier, so that's his most beloved role. Yes. So this is just like jam-packed with so many different, classic people, at least for our generation, I feel like. I don't know, they all were. Maybe some people don't know who some of these people are. Anyway, so this movie we thought was interesting because it talks about finding your path, your identity post-college. There's, a group of 4 friends. They're all trying to, they just graduated college. Lainey, who's Winona Ryder, is the valedictorian. She's giving a speech and kind of ends up saying
she's
the answer to all these problems she
she's
inherited
through
from
her
our
index card.
generation.
She's
And
like,
I don't know. And it's
That's
because
right,
she
yeah,
kind of
nope.
lost her place, but really, in essence, like she probably really doesn't know, and nobody really knows. Yeah, I don't know if there is an answer. Yeah, but yeah, so I think that this is a movie that a lot of people can relate to if you're of that generation, and as we were talking about of the generation now, the Gen Zers, I think they would find some similar points. It would be very different in terms of how they would maybe try to find themselves or find jobs. I don't think there would be an availability of all these kind of creative social media content creator type jobs or even just virtual jobs, to be able to find yourself. But I think Lainey is really struggling with finding meaning. She really wants to make something of videos that she's making of her friend, Yeah, it's really kind of interesting to see all the different characters. There's Ethan Hawke plays Troy, who's kind of this like disaffected genius type who doesn't really care about, how like if he has like a high power job or makes a lot of money that has a lot of prestige. He doesn't even care to finish college. He's just like, nah, I don't need it, and just works at a gas station, smokes some weed here and there, or a lot actually, I think, in the movie. And yeah, and there's kind of some tension between him and Winona. Lainey, I keep forgetting her name, but Vicky, Janine Garofalo, is Lainey's best friend, and there's just a lot of interactions, a lot of things where it's showing them, Ethan Hawke's character is very much kind of like, he can't really get involved, he can't commit, he kind of has a string of, I think as Lainey termed it, like empty bimbos or something, empty-headed bimbos, something like that. he kind of doesn't really have like anything where anybody would really get to know him. And then she starts dating Ben Stiller, who's another person that appears in this, who's kind of more of like the typical kind of what they would term as a yuppie. He's very corporate. He's got a, very high end job. He works pretty sweet, I think.
It's just,
I don't know.
you don't expect her to start dating him, though. And here's somebody who's buying her lunch or dinner and paying attention to her. And when she's not having to, put all the effort she seems to have to do for other people she's dated or liked.
Yeah. And even kind of like just, being different from her friends. I think she's kind of curious and kind of like, oh, this is kind of what I always thought I didn't want, but I think she's kind of investigating that part of her life, sort of. And Vicky, who we both agree is an awesome character, she's fun. She's kind of like super into 70s stuff.
Xanadu or
She had
Grease?
Doesn't she have like a poster of
Grease.
John Travolta in oh my God, I can't even think of
Pulp
the name of the
Fiction?
movie, where he's the,
Oh my gosh.
not
something
not
fever.
Grease, but like he's in the,
I don't know.
no, it's like it's a 70s movie where he's like, I can't think of it.
Yeah,
It's
if
like
you're
something-
screaming at us right now.
Or-
Yeah.
I'm
I feel
sure-
like it's
I'm thinking, I don't know what I'm thinking, but you all know that iconic movie.
You'll see
that-
it. You'll see him.
was in-
You'll see him doing the hand thing that Tanya was doing.
Yeah.
That you can't
I
see
tend
because
to
we're on a
forget, like well, it's in the movie. It pans over on the poster, and she's got like my rendition.
Yeah.
Exactly. But like she's obsessed with like 70s culture, and she's also kind of goes through like, a series of one night stands that she keeps track of in her diary. And then we learn that she's kind of afraid she's getting tested at a clinic because she might have like AIDS. That was kind of, at a high point at that time, like that fear of Lainey.
Like there's probably the chance of connection, chance of vulnerability.
Yeah. Which is so ironic because I think in the friend group, they all kind of are striving for this feeling of like authenticity. What's my like meaning in life? But they really struggle with making connections with people. And I think that's kind of a big part of some of the struggle in this movie, and kind of finding your identity and realizing that it's okay to, like someone who is in a corporate job or even want to be paid.
It's okay to, you're not a sellout. It's it's a weird balance. But now that I'm older, like I feel like it's like almost full circle. So now I'm, like doing therapy, doing it at home. I'm able to do stuff I like, plus have fun in between. So I'm like, hey, when I'm not seeing clients, I can go outside or go in the garden or do stuff, like do whatever I want. Like it's like I'll have a boss right over my shoulder or telling me what to do. So it's kind of like full circle for me.
I think that a lot of people and not, of course, not just Gen X, but like I think this is just capturing that struggle of we don't want to embrace the, our parents' baby boomer generation who went from being hippies, flower children, to like corporate yuppies kind of thing. And we don't want to be materialistic like, all the 80s kind of, that they experienced growing up, and they were, probably trying to go against that. But at the same point, you can't go so far idealistic where you're not caring about, actual survival and things like that. And it was kind of interesting where, Lainey was saying, I just wanted to, it meant something to me, this documentary. I can't speak today. Sorry. There's a podcaster who says documentary. And I started saying that because I've heard her say it so many times, but documentary.
Yeah.
And like her, when she ends up starting to date the corporate guy, Michael, and he decides to hand it over to his corporate company, they really make a mess of it. They cut it up and they make it all like real world and all that stuff, like the MTV kind of like, and they're misquoting, they're cutting out things, like cutting the things, saying the meaning of life is pizza, and it's just like making a mockery of all the things that she wanted to show. Yeah, it's kind of nostalgic because you kind of saw the way, even in that clip where Lainey's watching TV and it's like MTV fashion, and it's like the bandana for Crips and Bloods, Donna Karan, only $75, which was like an insane amount of money at that point for like
fashion,
just a scarf. And they're having like, they're kind of glorifying, hip hop gangster culture. It's ridiculous and it really was like that. It truly was. It was. There really was that era of like, it just went insane, and not like we don't do it now with other things, but that was for that period of time. But yeah, I think that this was really about kind of fighting against some of these, perceived mistakes, barriers, whatever it is that of the generation before them, and finding, their identity. Lainey trying to figure out which partner is better suited for her, which
I don't know why she had to choose either. I'm like wishing, like, why can't there be a third option for Lainey? Like, what if Lainey decided not to date anybody and just decided to figure out, how can I get my movie to PBS, or how can I do what she originally wanted to do instead of having a guy part of it? That would have been even better. Like, then that would have been like, hey, reality can be, you get to not be stuck with either of these guys.
Yeah, or like your path is not based on, what person you're dating. And I feel like in that era, that was kind of always how women were portrayed, was like, oh, okay, they're independent and they're free, and they kind of have to fight some things in the patriarchy. Like, she's kind of like telling her dad in the beginning, like, don't treat mom like a child, and I don't want your BMW, or she doesn't want your BMW kind of thing. But at the same point, that era and before,
which,
like, for sure,
it's nice that
still even
in movies today we're not seeing that as much. I mean, because I loved Lainey. I love who she was, and I liked her style, and I just thought she was just really cool.
Yeah.
And even like giving Michael a shot, and like that one part where she has that white dress on and she's so excited she got this. It's not usually her style, but she's stepping out and she's trying something new, and she thinks it's pretty. And then Troy is just like, oh, you look like you're wearing a doily, which is like, it's so mean. And it's like, instead of just being like, oh, that's nice, or have fun.
Yeah, he said doily. That's so mean.
He's going to say something, but you wonder, like, what is going on with Lainey's, like, self-esteem, self-worth, like, what, at that moment that she, because even like with Troy is like saying that, she's like, oh, well, I'm going to go change. And then Michael's like, no, you look beautiful. And he's like thinking, like, I'm the one dating you. Why do you care what he's saying? Why do you care? Why is Troy getting in your head? Like, let's go. You look really nice. And it took her a moment. Yeah.
And then Troy's like, no, don't go thinking for yourself. Like, he is really a jerk. He really is. I hated that. I was so like, oh, well, like when she stepped down, I was like, she looks cute, and like she's got like the red lipstick, and she's like this little, the little waif gal, and she's just got a pretty face, and she just looked nice. It just was like different from kind of the grunge kind of wear that she normally like had on. But I thought I was like, oh wow, she looks nice, and then it just kind of sunk that moment. And I don't know, I think we were talking about this earlier, but I think Troy, the character, would have appealed to me when I was younger. But I think Michael, like if there were a choice between the two, I think Michael would now appeal to me more, because
he's not sleeping on, like, he's not sleeping on someone's couch.
By all means, he seems to be a pretty decent guy in like a corporate job. He's not rude. I mean, he seems to care though too. Like, he lets her go, like, for the insurance thing. He's like, you seem nice, and like, yeah, he probably likes her, but still, I mean, he's not like trying to go after money anywhere he can see it. He's not like litigious and a, jerk like that.
Especially if you're comparing the two of them. It's, like he does seem like he can be sweet, but there's also something about him that doesn't appeal to Lainey. Like, maybe he's not as edgy as she has always dated, or maybe that's something that she's afraid to look inward, because maybe that's what she really wants. Maybe she wants somebody who has money, who's financially secure or already in their career.
Yeah. And I think there's just not the same like physical attraction and just like kind of like connection that she has with Troy. Like she just is kind of, they're kind of similar in their thinking. They just kind of have that thing, that, I don't know, you just kind of feel in someone else. I'm trying to picture now, like, say, and this is so ridiculous, but I did try to project into the future with this movie and these fictional characters. And I was like, say they ended up together, right? Troy and Lainey. What does he end up doing? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, she seems like she would continue to pursue her documentaries, like kind of media pursuits, maybe have moved into like social media type stuff, digital media, whatever. I feel like that would be a safe bet with her. She seemed pretty driven. She was connected to that. But with Troy, I mean, like, does he still want to go after being in a band and like kind of half-assing it?
I don't know.
Like just kind of,
or is he on the lazy boy drinking a beer?
I don't know.
Every
does
night,
he like pick up and kind of do something and then get into like a very rigid work ethic and then kind of throw himself
saying
into
he's
work,
going to look for a job?
Like, that's what I kind of picture with
20
him.
years later. I know. That's what I picture.
Yeah, that's kind of more what I lean towards. But I do know. I mean,
Or
some people can
with the
like
death
pick it
of
up
his
and be like,
father,
okay, and they just kind of have like
after he
a
finishes
lag, but
mourning or whatever, it
I think
doesn't seem
they
like they
kind
had a
of
great relationship.
kind of like,
But does that make
he
him
would
realize,
not.
like, okay,
Cool.
well, maybe I need
Alright.
to figure out who I want to be and, you know, get a trade or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it could have been like the catalyst to kind of give him like the kick in the pants, you know, to be like, all right, get going. And I think that's kind of the one of the themes of this movie is like, what is it that kind of makes you come to realize that, you know,
Yeah.
no matter
Well,
what, you have to be in reality, no matter how you kind of deal with it. Is it you get a job where you're just like, oh, I'm just not going to try so that I
yeah.
you
Well,
know, don't have to live
you kind of have
in that
that.
kind of world,
You
you
kind
know,
of get
where
stuck,
everything is
right?
about
You,
competing,
if you
or is
don't
it kind of like,
move forward, like,
do I go
we
corporate
all
and
have
go
seen
see
the
my full
people who
potential?
like
Like, you know what
get
I mean? I
stuck,
think
like,
there's
the
kind of a lot
townies
of
or whatever,
pressure.
who like after high school or after, like, or whatever, just kind of get stuck. They're just, time, time doesn't, like just kind of stopped with whatever age they were, like 18, 19, they're still probably wearing the same type of clothes, listening to the same music, living in their parents' basement or whatever they're doing. And it's probably still smoking pot all day. And it is just like, what, you wonder what happened or why did they decide to just stay? What made them not progress to adulthood? And that's probably like with Troy, it's like he did move out, but he's just kind of like floating. He's like living on people's couches and doing this and just not really making that full commitment past high school. Because you and I talked before, I was going to say session, before our podcast that that, like at their age, high school was just a few years before. I know they just graduated from college, but just like 4 or 5 years before that, they were just high schoolers. So, and it sounds like Troy is still like stuck in between. And a lot of people get stuck in between. And sometimes people don't have that push to either realize that they are stuck because they have other people in their life that keep supporting them, family members or other friends or other people that they really have no incentive to fully become adults.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. And I think with Troy, he's like he's known to be very intellectual, but to be kind of against the system, like kind of antisocial in that regard, like kind of, I'm not going to follow the prescribed path of, that society gives to me. But I think what you're saying, at the end, you do see him kind of change a little bit. And who knows, if this was just a temporary thing or if this actually did, can definitely give someone a, fresh set of eyes to be like, wait a minute, what the heck am I doing here? We don't have that long. And, he didn't even know his dad too well, right? Because we learned that in the movie. And it may kind of be like, I may as well give what it is I have. It doesn't matter if this looks like, it's inauthentic or it's not helping the world and this and that. It doesn't matter.
Then he came back and he realized like, oh, well, I really do want to be with Lainey. I don't want to just date around. And then you see Lainey's with, definitely with figuring out, okay, well, I want to work. I definitely do want to have my oh my God, now I can't say the word. Documentary. Oh my God, I hate you. Yeah. But the documentary that she had, that now she realizes like, this is what I want. I want to have this for you.
Like it'll have you saying it. It's a weird way to
you see that adulthood. Sammy is when he comes out comes out to his family. So it's really hard and trying. And, so that is really his, probably his big reality thing. Like, and with Vicky, I think it's twofold for her. I think it's when she gets her management for Gap, because that's huge. And then she realizes this is my career. I want to, I really love this. I'm so proud of myself. And I really this is what I want to do. I want to be a manager of Gap and I want to do and work in retail. And also, I think getting the negative test from when she got the AIDS test, I think those were two big things, because then that might have made her realize like, oh, maybe I should be more conscious of who I'm sleeping with or what I'm doing or what safety I'm putting in place. So I do think each of those 4 main characters probably do have like, it's not like they're not saying like reality bites like each time, but I think they are having different points of adulthood and reality come in.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. I didn't think of it that way, but that is a really good perspective. I
Mhm.
think you're right. I think that really is kind of where like they have those like transition into like I don't want to say transition into adulthood, but kind
Right.
of like where they kind of realize, hey, this is what I need to take on. I don't have to be unhappy
Right.
about it. And yeah, I have to accept some like prescribed rules and like
Mhm.
norms and, stuff like that of society. But it doesn't mean that I'm fully compromised. I can still be who I want to be. Vicky can still be, kind of her quirky self. And I think she's hilarious. And Lainey can still, be getting great
Mm.
footage of her friends and kind of the struggle that she's capturing of that generation and finding
Yeah.
their identity and who they are after college. And, with Troy kind of Troy finds it at the very end. So we don't really know,
Yeah.
but I'm
Yeah.
sure, I mean, hopefully, I guess we're hoping maybe that
Yeah, and
kind of
he's
was a change for
yeah,
him.
and
And
he
Sammy, of
seems so
course, you're
sweet
hoping
too.
his
He's just
parents will come to
I like
their freaking
Sammy.
senses because
He is. He's
yeah,
he's a good
um,
like he's like
gosh,
the
just ridiculous because
like
he
the
didn't he
friend that
obviously
you
didn't do
they don't
anything
really
wrong there.
highlight a lot in that, but he's like always there and
Yeah.
he's like the
He's such a
cheerleader
good
for
friend.
everybody.
Yeah, yeah. He really is. Like, he was so
Yeah.
happy when Vicky got her negative test result. He was just like, "Oh my gosh," and he was, like, always there. It's yeah, he was
Yeah, that
really,
you would notice if
um,
they weren't part of the
one of
group.
those, yeah, like, cornerstone friends that, like, maybe is kind of in the background, but is actually, like, a really
Yeah.
great friend that you would really, really miss.
Yeah. And that's sad. And it's sad that that
Yeah,
happens or
yeah.
happened a lot back
It's
then
so
and
it's so
probably
sad when
still
he's sitting out in
happens
front of his
today
parents' house and he's like, "I just wanna go
when
home. Like, I just wanna be able to be let back inside the house," like yeah, that honestly, like, I used to feel
yeah, they're
so I
your
mean, I
children.
still
They're
do,
still
of
your
course, but,
children.
like, it was a huge point of, like, empathy
Yeah.
for me. I used to feel so, like,
Yeah.
I just don't get it, and, like, oh my gosh, these people, they feel yes. What? Why would you do that to your kids? I still
Yeah.
don't get it, but I feel like, yeah, those were big things, I think, back in that movie. Not that it's not, but I think it was in a different stage, kind of accepting if
Yeah.
somebody was
Yeah, that was
gay
in the
or,
height of it too.
had
Still.
was not heterosexual. But and then also the AIDS epidemic was still in pretty full swing. Yeah, I actually just saw something. This is so weird, but this is before we even were going to watch this. We're planning to watch this movie, but I saw something that I think I posted on Instagram that was like there was this camp for kids that was established like I don't know, 30 years ago or something, or maybe in the 80s, maybe 40 years ago in the 80s. But that was for kids who had
Yeah, I
HIV
saw
and or AIDS and
yeah,
that they were
I saw
shutting
you
it
post
down
that. I
because
thought that
it's
was
just
great.
been it's
I
had such a,
that
the
that's like what
uh,
they probably
the
wanted,
medication
like, when
has
they
just been
opened the
so
camp, they
effective
said
because
they probably
there's
like
just
how a
not
lot of
enough people for
places
it.
are like,
It's
"Okay, we're
great.
here
Like
until we're not needed anymore." But they never realize that it's gonna really actually come to fruition. So that's really awesome. That's great.
yeah, that's like one of those things you want to hear that they're out of business. Yeah. Yeah, that's really great. Yeah, and so I mean, it just kind of shows the difference in the time period, right? The things that were really, at the height. I don't
Yeah.
I don't really know what a maybe like COVID thinking about that, but
Mhm.
that's not quite the same. I don't know, but it's very different, I think, where we're at in the timelines with those things. But still obviously difficulties with those things. But yeah, I do think it was and oh my god, Ethan Hawke and his green eyes. Oof, oof, he was very cute. He was very cute. I don't know. I had a huge crush on him. I know he kind of disappeared, sort of. Like he had a few more things and he kind of disappeared, but I liked him, man. He was a cutie. Yeah, he was a cutie. But I think this movie is I hadn't watched it in a while. I probably watched it probably in maybe the early thousands was the last time, maybe late 90s. I don't know. But rewatching it again was interesting. I forgot about a lot of it, and it was just a different perspective. The youngin', they're all young. It's so nuts to see them. This was like 30 years ago, and they were in their 20s. So yeah, it's just really different. And then the fact that Andy Dick is in there, we didn't know that, and Renee Zellweger, just very small appearances, but like they were David Spade. Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. David Pierner from Soul Asylum. Yeah. So I think it was just nice to this is a movie that if you're into like Gen X or if you just like the point of it, if you're just kind of curious, if you like the actors or the actresses, just go check it out. We like it being you know, basically Gen Xers. I'm kind of on the cusp, but basically a Gen Xer. And, I think it really is just it really tells you a lot about how much things have evolved and how much they have not. It's kind of the same thing. I was thinking, while watching it, I was like, wow, I've definitely heard people who are in this latest generation or just younger people saying, some of these things that they're talking about in the movie that are worries and struggles and everything, just maybe with different language. Let's close it out. And, we hope you enjoyed this. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you want to watch it, or if you have watched it, or if you watched it again, and if that kind of changed your perspective the way it did with both of us. But don't forget, stay wicked
and keep your mind well. All right. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
guys.
Thanks so much for listening today to the Wicked Psychotherapist podcast. Be sure to like and follow us on Apple, Spotify, and Amazon, or wherever else you listen to your podcasts.